Family is supposed to be your haven, the ones who love you unconditionally. But what happens when they only see you as a means to an end? For years, I supported my parents and siblings, believing it was my duty. Then, one night, I overheard their cruel laughter as they mocked my generosity. That was the moment I realized, I wasn't their daughter. I was just their bank. And that's when I made a decision that would change everything. My name is Cassandra, but most people call me Cass. I'm 32 years old, and to be honest, I've done well for myself, not in a showy way, not in a way that shouts millionaire, but well enough to be comfortable. I have a job that I love, I travel whenever I want, and I don't worry about bills. Most importantly, though, I got here on my own, without any help or shortcuts, just years of hard work, which is something my family finds intolerable. I grew up in a home where success was determined by two factors: how much you could take and how loudly you could complain when there was nothing left to take. My parents, Lisa and Mark, were experts at both, and my younger sister Rachel and older brother Nathan followed in their footsteps without hesitation. The four of them were a close-knit group that constantly looked out for each other, but not in a loving or supportive way. They were more like a pack of wolves waiting for the right opportunity to attack anyone who showed weakness. Perhaps I was different because I was the middle child. I discovered early on that depending on them would only lead to disappointment. Regardless of the reason I left home, the moment I was able to support myself through college with scholarships and side jobs and create a life apart from them, that should have been the end of it. However, family relationships are convoluted, and no matter how far I put myself away from them, they always manage to bring me back in, not with sympathy or regret, but with guilt. They were having difficulties, and I was doing well. Wasn't it my duty to help? And foolishly I did. I started small, paying off a late bill with a couple of $100, then some loans were never paid back, emergencies that seemed to only affect them, and finally, the house I bought 2 years ago as an investment property. It's a lovely 3-bedroom house in a nice neighborhood, the kind of place I wish I'd grown up in. It was meant to be a rental property to generate passive income, but my parents had other ideas. My father, who is always the more pragmatic one, didn't cry. Instead, he simply sighed deeply and told me how disappointing it was that their daughter would rather rent to strangers than help her family. Nathan and Rachel also chimed in, acting as though I were some sort of monster for hesitating. The manipulation started the moment they learned that I owned a house. My mother called me in tears. "You have everything," Rachel sneered, "so why can't you just do this one thing for them?" So I gave in. I told myself it was only temporary, that they would get back on their feet and move out in a few months, but months turned into a year, and a year turned into 2, and during that time they never paid a dime, not for rent, utilities, or even maintenance, and if I ever dared to mention it, they pretended that I was the one being irresponsible to them. From their perspective, my success wasn't truly mine, rather, it was theirs, something they were entitled to. This leads me to tonight, which is my father's birthday, and my mother insisted on hosting a large family dinner at the house I paid for, even though I had no intention of attending. Rachel was worse than you, and if they hadn't raised you, you wouldn't even have this house. My mother called me, her voice syrupy sweet, and told me how much it would mean to them if I showed up because it had been so long since we'd all been together. I should have said no, ignored the call, and carried on with my life, but there's still that part of me that secretly wishes they could be different and perhaps treat me like a daughter rather than a walking ATM, so I park down the before heading up the driveway. I take a moment to collect myself. The lights inside are bright, shadows are moving behind the curtains, and laughter is loudly filtered out through the slightly open window. I pause and put my hand on the doorknob, but as soon as my name is called, Rachel's voice drips with amusement. I had assumed that she was too busy hoarding her valuable money to spend time with her family, but perhaps she has finally learned to be giving. Nathan laughs, but I doubt it. You know how she is. My mother is ungrateful for everything we have done for her, and my father laughs at her because she has no husband, children, money, or anything else to show for it. She believes she is better than us, but eventually, she will die alone. Rachel hums in agreement, saying she should be thankful that she even gets to help us, not as if she would have anywhere else to go. I let go of the doorknob, and there is no sadness or anger, just a cold, quiet realization that they will never change. They don't love me, they never did to me, and I'm not family. Resource a bank account that they can access at any time without considering the person behind it. I back away from the door, turn around, and leave, my heels clicking softly on the sidewalk. I take my phone out of my pocket and steady my fingers as I dial the number. A voice asks, "What's up, Cassandra?" on the second ring. I take a deep breath, the night air is cool against my skin, and I'm ready. I say, "Start the eviction process." There is silence, then a low whistle, and I've had enough. The last time the light spilled out like a warm invitation, I knew better than to accept, but I think I have. I hung up and put the phone back in my pocket. The weight of what I just said hit me all at once. I don't feel like my heart is racing. I don't feel like I'm triumphant or have a rush of adrenaline. Instead, I feel like I'm finally doing something for myself for the first time in years. That's been a long time coming. I stand there for a minute just to ground myself and breathe in the cool air before returning to the family gathering. As I get closer to the door, I can hear their laughter coming from inside. Rachel's mocking tone and Nathan's dismissive chuckle, as well as my parents' disappointed sigh, make me take another step and enter the house. The dining room is decorated with balloons, banners, and a cake that I recognize as being for a celebration. Didn't bake herself. The conversation stopped as soon as I walked in, and everyone's attention was drawn to me and my family, despite all of their imperfections. I don't know how to make an entrance feel like an event, and the silence isn't awkward, but it seems like they're waiting for something dramatic to happen before the performance starts. Cass, you made it. My mother's voice is syrupy sweet, too sweet, as if she's trying a little too hard to be the devoted mother. I fake a smile and nod as if they've never made room for anyone else, not even boyfriends, partners, or friends, just me. I can feel their eyes on me, but I keep my focus straight ahead while feigning to admire the centerpieces. Rachel gives me a glance, her lips curling up into a barely concealed sneer. Backhanded compliments and veiled criticisms don't bother me. Come in, dear, take a seat, we've been waiting for you. My father grunts from the other end of the table, fumbling with his fork, looking at me as if I'm some sort of puzzle he hasn't been able to solve. Cass, he says, his voice low and cautious, how's the business going? Still raking in all that cash? His tone is passive-aggressive, the kind of jab that's supposed to sound innocent but is anything but I don't fall for it. They truly believe that I'm so innocent that I haven't realized how they've been controlling me for the past 2 years. The guilt trips, the fake concern, the neutral, I won't give them the satisfaction of knowing how well it's going, but good. Good, good, my mother says quickly, too quickly, glad to hear it. We've been wondering how much longer we can stay here, though, because we would rather not overstay our welcome. The words linger in the air for a moment, and I can't help but laugh inside. Nathan, who is always the one to push things a little further, leans back in his chair with a smirk. Yes, Cass, you're doing so well for yourself that I don't think it'll be too much of a stretch for you to help us out more. We've been living here for a while now, and I feel my jaw tighten, but I maintain my composure. You're welcome to stay. As long as you need to, I respond in a calm voice. I try to smile, but I can see her smirk faltering as I lean forward slightly, my eyes meeting hers. Rachel, you've never been shy about telling me what you think I should do with my life, but just so you know, I don't need to justify my success to you. I think we both know this situation can't go on forever. Rachel pipes up, her voice dripping with sarcasm. Yeah, right, if you ever decide to help us, but I suppose it's difficult when you're too busy spending your money on yourself. Or anybody else. The words pierce the tension in the room, but I don't care, I've allowed them to manipulate me for too long. My mother moves in her chair, her smile never quite reaching her eyes. Of course not, dear, she says, but her tone is thinly veiled with bitterness. We just want what's best for you, she says. I look around the table, and for the first time, I don't feel the weight of their expectations or the pull of guilt. Everyone in the room sits up a little straighter when I say, I've made some decisions, and I think it's time we have a conversation about the future. I don't need to say it out loud because they all understand that I'm done being the person they can rely on without ever giving anything back. It's time for them to face the consequences of their actions. I nod slowly, my gaze hardening. I let out a slow breath as my mind flashed back to all the times I've been the one to help, the one to bail them out, the one to fix things when they couldn't be bothered to try. No, I don't. My father is the first to break the lengthy and uncomfortable silence, his voice low and edged with something like impatience. What's that supposed to mean, Cass? He asks, his brow furrowed. I believe it's time for you all to start working things out on your own. The room remains silent. There is no argument. No outburst, just a tense, unsettling silence. I can feel my mother's eyes on me, but I don't flinch. I've made up my mind. Now, it's time to let them think it out. As the evening wears on, the conversation changes, but the tension persists. I can tell they're all trying to act normal, but it feels like they're walking on eggshells around me. I don't care, by the time I leave, nothing has been changed. The next morning, I wake up to a quiet sense of satisfaction that lingers in the air, not the kind of satisfaction you get from winning a fight, but the kind that comes when you finally put yourself first after years of giving so much to everyone else. I feel like something has changed, though, and I'll make that call again when I get home to make sure I'm not backing down this time, and they have no idea what's coming for them. My heart skips a beat as I take a deep breath. Perfect. Let's do it. I'm sitting at my kitchen table drinking coffee when I hear my phone ring. It's my lawyer. I look at the screen and answer calmly, even though I can already feel the nerves bubbling beneath the surface. Cass, the lawyer, greets me, his tone crisp. It's all set, we're ready to send them the notice. I bought them a house, but they don't realize that I've already made plans to have them removed if they don't comply after everything. They've exploited my kindness for too long. As the hours pass, I try to remain calm, not anxious, just ready, and I don't need to wait for them. I can almost hear the arguments already. How could I do this to them? How could I kick them out after everything they've done for me? But I know the truth, they've never really done anything for me. It's always been about what they could take, not about what they could give. Therefore, this is my decision, and I'm not backing down. The text appears at precisely 11:30 a.m. Official, professional, and final, the eviction notice has been sent, and my parents and siblings will be leaving the house in less than 30 days. I stand there for a moment, staring at the phone, and I let out a slow exhale. I feel a wave of relief. They won't understand right away, but they will eventually realize how much this moment has taken from me. Then, at that very moment, my phone buzzes again. This time it's a text from Rachel. It's a single sentence. Why would you do this? I stare at it. When I drive over to their house to talk to them that evening, the tension is high from the moment I walk in the door, and it's not just because of the notice I sent earlier. There's something else going on, and it's just like Rachel to flip the script and make me the villain in this whole situation, to act like I've done something wrong. I don't respond right away. It's better to let her stew for a while. I'll handle it when the time is right. Beneath the surface, my mother's eyes are cold when they meet mine, and my father's hands are clenched tightly around his drink. Rachel and Nathan are already seated at the table, their faces like open books, and they are both angry and confused. They realize something is different, but they are unsure of what it is. I walk to the table, and for the first time in a long time, I feel in control. I no longer have to keep the peace by walking on eggshells or acting like someone I'm not. It's my turn, Cass. We need to discuss this. My father says in a tight voice, you can't just throw us out like this. We've been here for 2 years, and you owe us. I don't flinch. In fact, I don't owe you anything. I've done more than enough, but I can't keep doing it anymore. My mother's voice comes up a little desperate. How can you do this to your family after everything we've done for you? Rachel's eyes narrow, and her lips curl into a sneer. This is typical of you, Cass. Rachel's face flushes, but before she can respond, my father cuts him off. You're always thinking you're better than the rest of us, and you think you can just pull this kind of thing without any consequences. I turn to face her, my voice steady but full of a quiet certainty that I'm not the one who's been using my family's kindness to my advantage. You're right, maybe I am better than you. I don't need to hide behind guilt or manipulation. Hardening you to believe that this is about you being superior to us, about respect, about family, and that we don't deserve a roof over our heads after everything we've done for you. Cass, we gave you everything, and now look where we are. I'm furious because you've been living in my house for 2 years without paying rent, taking advantage of me at every opportunity, and you're not the one who made sacrifices. I did this on my own enough. My mother yells, I can't believe you'd turn your back on us like this. You're disrespecting your family. I shake my head slowly, seeing the disappointment in their eyes. No, Mom, you disrespected me a long time ago. I'm done being your safety net, your charity case. You're punching back. You don't get to guilt trip me into submission anymore. The table falls silent, and for a brief moment, nobody knows what to say. When I stop playing along with Rachel, her lips tremble with anger, and she suddenly stands up, knocking over her chair. I can't even look at you right now, her voice cold and cutting, you're awful. My father also gets up, his voice low and seething with a barely controlled rage. You don't get to treat us like this, Cass. You'll regret this. You'll regret everything. I reply, my voice steady and unwavering. Because it's done, the house belongs to me, and you'll have to work things out without me. I feel the weight of the words settle between us, and I know that this conversation will change everything, but there's no turning back now that I've crossed a line, and it's too late for them to make things right. I turn to leave, but not before hearing my father's voice one last time. You'll have to understand that I don't answer because I know deep down that they'll never see things the way I do, and as I close the door behind me, I feel a strange sense of finality. There's no turning back from this, and they don't even realize that I've just set everything in motion. The weeks that followed felt surreal, and every time I entered my home, I couldn't help but notice the weight that had been lifted off my shoulders. There were no more angry, guilt-ridden texts, no more visits from my parents, and no more passive-aggressive comments from Rachel. It felt like a lifetime of tension had finally been released, unraveled and told, and for the first time in years, I had some breathing room. However, I knew that this was not the end of it. The eviction notice had been very clear, and the clock was ticking. My parents had tried to postpone it, sending me pleading messages about how difficult things were for them. It was the same old story, but I had already decided that my decision was final, and nothing they said could change the fact that I hadn't heard from them in a long time. Until the day the movers arrived, I was at work when I received the text from my mother. The victim had sent it with the simple phrase, "You're heartless." My initial reaction was to reply with something equally scathing, but I restrained myself. Because there was no need, I had already taken the necessary action, and they had to face the consequences of their actions. The movers arrived that afternoon while my parents weren't home, which was, to be honest, better for everyone because I didn't have to deal with their angry words or guilt-ridden. When I returned home that evening, the house was quiet, empty. And all that was left was the space left by the people who had once occupied it. There were no more arguments, no more demands, and as I walked through the house, I looked at the rooms that had been occupied by them for so long. It was almost as if a weight had been lifted. Attempts to manipulate me one last time were futile. Because I had given them more than enough chances, and now they would have to face the reality of what they had done. The silence was deafening, but it felt good. I checked my phone and saw another message from Rachel, saying, "I can't believe you kicked us out like this. You aren't even concerned about family, you think you're so much better than us." I didn't even bother answering. The next few days were odd. My phone buzzed with messages from cousins, distant relatives, and even some of my friends who had heard rumors, some of whom tried to play they didn't understand when the mediator asked if I could just forgive them or told me how harsh I was being, and I couldn't bring myself to explain what needed to be explained. In any case, I had been carrying them around for years, letting them manipulate me and guilt-trip me into doing everything for them, but no one had ever really been there for me, no one had ever asked what I needed or how I felt. It was always about what I could give. My parents didn't respect me, they never had, and they were now angry, but that would eventually fade, the family would understand, and fade, they'd be fine, and if they weren't, that wasn't my problem anymore. A week after the eviction, I finally heard from my father, but instead of checking in with me or asking how I was doing, he went on a lengthy, angry tirade about how I had ruined the family and that I would eventually come crawling back, realizing my mistake. I read the message and deleted it, and the next family get-together was awkward, to put it mildly, and my parents and siblings weren't there. I couldn't help but feel that cold pang of disappointment when I realized they weren't there, but it was probably for the best because I wasn't going to beg them for forgiveness or allow them to drag me back into that toxic cycle of manipulating my guilt and being ungrateful. As the days went by, I noticed a subtle change in how I approached life. I stopped feeling bad about putting my needs ahead of theirs and instead began making decisions. It felt like a weight had been lifted off my shoulders and from my heart. I've considered reaching out to try to make things right, but every time I'm tempted, I remind myself why I did it. I didn't need to explain myself to anyone anymore due to their reactions, but the hardest part was the silence. I hadn't realized how much noise they had filled my life with until they were gone. I had done everything I could to be there for them, but I was never going to take revenge or get back at them. It's about taking charge of my life and finally standing up for myself after years of putting everyone else before me, maybe my family, but that doesn't give you the right to treat them like an option to take advantage of their generosity without ever offering anything in return. I'm content with my decision for now because I would rather not be their doormat again. It's not an easy one, and I don't take it lightly, but it's the correct one for me. I'd like to know what you think. Am I wrong for doing this? Should I have tried? Challenging to get things to function with my family, or was there no other way for me to understand your thoughts?